The morning light spilled through my grandfather's old curtains as I sat at the wooden table with my coffee. The silence of the property always carried both comfort and weight. "This place is too quiet," I muttered, staring out at the acres of land that stretched beyond the porch. "It feels like him, and yet it feels empty without him." The front door creaked open before I could take another sip. "Hello," I called out, startled. A woman's voice answered, sharp and mocking. "So this is where you've been hiding." I turned Karen, my neighbor, though she never acted neighborly. Short blonde hair, crossed arms, smug smirk. "What are you doing here?" I asked. She stepped further inside, ignoring boundaries like they meant nothing. "Just thought I'd see the place. You know, before it becomes mine." I blinked. "Yours. That's right?" She tapped her polished nails on the table like she owned it. "This property is in dispute. You might want to pack your things before the papers arrive." My grip tightened on the mug. "This land was my grandfather's. He left it to me. There's no dispute." "Oh, sweetie," she sneered. "There's always a dispute when money's involved. Land like this doesn't just fall into the hands of little girls with no fight." "I don't want a fight," I snapped, though my voice trembled. "I just want to live in peace." Her smile widened. "Peace? You won't find that here, not once the lawyers get involved. You can't just barge in here, and I can do whatever I need." She cut me off. "The truth is, you don't deserve this place. You're all alone out here. What will you even do with it? Let it rot." My throat went dry. "I'll take care of it." That's what he wanted. She laughed, a short, cruel sound. "We'll see. Consider this a courtesy visit before things get official." I stood, slamming the mug down harder than I meant to. "Get out." Her eyes glinted with satisfaction, like my anger was the reaction she wanted all along. "Don't worry, Jenna. You'll hear from me soon." She turned on her heel and left, the door banging shut behind her. The silence that followed was heavier than before. I sank back into the chair, pressing my hands against my face. What the hell just happened? The walls of the farmhouse seemed to close in on me. My grandfather's picture hung by the door, his familiar smile frozen in time. "I don't know if I can do this without you," I whispered to his photo. 3 days later, the mailman handed me an envelope. The words "Notice of Dispute" screamed from the top of the page. I tore it open, my eyes scanning lines of legal jargon I barely understood. At the bottom, Karen's name. My stomach churned. I grabbed the phone, calling the only lawyer whose number I had. "Hello." His voice came through. "It's Jenna," I said, my voice cracking. I got this notice. My neighbor says the land isn't mine. She's trying to take it." He paused, slowed down. "Do you have the will, the deed?" "Yes," I said, quickly. "My grandfather left it to me. Signed, witnessed, everything." "Then, she doesn't have a case. But she can make your life difficult. Are you ready for that?" I swallowed hard. I don't know. I didn't think anyone would care about this place except me. People care about land, Jenna. Especially people like her. I rubbed my temples. She came here. She walked into my home and told me it would be hers. She laughed at me. His voice softened. "That's intimidation. Don't let her win before the fight even begins." "I don't want a fight," I repeated, though I knew the words sounded hollow now. "You may not have a choice," he said firmly. I hung up and sat in silence, staring at the papers. My chest rose and fell with uneven breaths. She won't take this from me, I said aloud, trying to convince myself. This land was all I had left of him. Now someone wants to rip it away, and she smiles while doing it. The wind outside rattled the windows. I closed my eyes and whispered, "I'll fight. If that's what it takes, I'll fight." The knock on my door came early, sharper than usual. "Morning, Jenna." Sheriff Nolan tipped his hat, though his face was stone. "Got a complaint. Says you've been making noise late at night." Noise? I frowned. I live alone. The only noise out here is crickets. Karen says otherwise, he muttered, scribbling in his little pad. Of course she does. I folded my arms. What exactly does she claim? Generator, hammering music. He looked me up and down. Anything you want to admit to. I shook my head. The only sound here is my kettle whistling. You really think I'm throwing parties out here? He sighed. Just doing my job. Keep it down, will ya? Or maybe you could ask her to stop lying. He didn't answer. Just tipped his hat again and left. By noon, I heard whispers at the general store. Did you hear about Jenna? Says she keeps the whole valley up. She's turning that place into a junkyard. Shame. I set my groceries on the counter harder than I meant to. Is that what she's been telling you? The cashier blinked. I don't get involved. Sounds like you already did, I snapped. Then carried my bag out before the tears in my throat broke loose. 2 days later, a man in a county jacket showed up. Code enforcement. You, Jenna? Yes, we got reports of unsafe structures. Mind if I take a look around? I tightened my grip on the screen door. Unsafe. This house has stood for 50 years. Complaint says rotten beams, dangerous wiring. I laughed bitterly. Let me guess, Karen filed it. He shrugged. Doesn't matter who filed it. I still gotta check. I stepped aside reluctantly. He walked through, tapping walls, shining a flashlight into corners. After 20 minutes, he scribbled notes. Well, I demanded. Nothing serious. Needs some paint. Maybe a few repairs. No violations. I let out a breath. So you'll tell her she wasted your time. He gave me a tight smile. We don't tell complainants anything. Figures. That night, I called Karen directly. Why are you doing this? I asked as soon as she answered. Her laugh was syrupy sweet. Doing what? You know exactly what. Complaints, rumors, code enforcement. Jenna, she interrupted. If you can't handle a little scrutiny, maybe you shouldn't be living out there alone. Some of us care about community standards. Community standards. Or getting me off this land. Maybe both, she said smoothly. Wouldn't you rather live somewhere smaller, cozier, easier to manage? I gritted my teeth. This is my home, not for long. She hung up. 3 days later, a thick envelope arrived in the mail. I ripped it open at the kitchen table. Legal documents spilled out. Words like boundary dispute, claim of encroachment, petition for hearing jumped at me. I grabbed the phone and dialed my lawyer again. Got another letter. I said, my voice shaking. She's trying to claim boundary rights now. Says part of my land is hers. He sighed heavily. She filed faster than I expected. So what does this mean? It means court. She's playing aggressive. If you don't fight, she could take a slice of your property. A slice, I whispered. First it's a slice, Then it's the whole thing. That's how these wars start. You ready to dig in? I pressed my forehead to the cool table. Do I even have a choice? Not if you want to keep what's yours. That night, I sat on the porch, the papers spread across my lap. The stars above me should have been calming, but my chest was tight. I whispered into the dark. She isn't just trying to make my life harder. She wants me gone. The call from my boss came in the middle of the afternoon. Jenna, we need to talk, he said, his voice heavy. What's wrong? I asked, clutching the phone tighter. There's been a complaint. A customer said you were rude, even threatening. What? My voice cracked. I wasn't rude to anyone. Who said that? I can't disclose names, he said quickly, but the board takes it seriously. We can't afford bad press. I felt the blood drain from my face. You're firing me. It's best if we part ways, he said softly. I'm sorry. The line went dead before I could protest. By evening, I sat at the table. Bills spread out like vultures. Mortgage, utilities, groceries. I whispered the words, as if saying them out loud would make them shrink. No paycheck, no backup. The numbers blurred. I slammed the papers down. She did this. Karen did this. I stormed outside, pacing the porch. My voice rose into the night. First, the land, then my job. What next? Karen, you want my blood, too. Silence answered. Only crickets and the weight of my own words. Inside, I stared at my grandfather's photo above the mantel. His steady smile made my chest ache. You wouldn't have let her push you around, I muttered. You'd tell me to stand tall. But I'm not you. I'm drowning here. Memories surged him sipping tea on the porch, his rough hands guiding. Mine on the plow, his voice saying, "This land will keep you safe." Safe, I whispered bitterly. It's destroying me. I grabbed the deed from the drawer, the edges soft from handling. For the first time the thought slipped in. Maybe I should sell. My phone buzzed. I stared at the name, flashing Avery, my sister, estranged for years. I hesitated, then pressed call instead. She picked up. Jenna, this is unexpected. I wouldn't call if it wasn't important, I said quickly, my voice trembling. I need help. A pause. What kind of help? Money, I blurted. Just enough to get me through. I lost my job, and Karenchi's been tearing my life apart. I can't keep the land if I can't pay the bills. Avery sighed, long and weary. Jenna, we haven't spoken in years. Now you call asking for money. I know how it sounds. I rushed, but I don't have anyone else. Please, just this once. Her tone hardened. You chose that land over family. You stayed while I moved on. Don't act surprised. I'm not rushing in now. Tears stung my eyes. You don't understand. It's all I have left of him. If I lose it, I lose everything. Maybe letting go is what you need, she said flatly. No. My voice cracked. I can't let her win. Not after everything she's done. Then fight, Avery said. But don't drag me into it. The line clicked dead. I sank to the floor, phone slipping from my hand. The silence roared louder than any storm. She hates me too, I whispered. Everyone does. The walls felt closer, the air heavier. I stumbled back onto the porch, collapsing into the chair where Grandpa used to sit. My body shook, sobs breaking free. I can't do this, I cried into the night. I'm not strong enough. She's taking everything piece by piece, and I can't stop her. The wind rustled the trees, almost like a whisper. My chest heaved. I hugged my knees to my chest, rocking slightly. The stars above blurred through tears. I sat on the porch where Grandpa used to drink his tea, wondering if I was strong enough to stay. The floor creaked under my heel again, the same loose board that had been nagging me for weeks. Perfect, I muttered. One more thing. Falling apart around here. I grabbed a screwdriver and pried it up, expecting dust and maybe a mouse nest. Instead, a small envelope slid forward, wedged deep beneath the plank. My breath caught. What in the world? It was yellowed, brittle. My name written in Grandpa's uneven scrawl. My fingers trembled as I tore it open. A folded sheet of paper slipped out, along with a smaller slip. I whispered, "Grandpa." The handwriting was shaky but deliberate. I read aloud, voice breaking. "Jenna, if you're reading this, it means the land is testing you. I always feared someone would try to take it from you, just like they tried with me." I froze, clutching the paper tighter. He knew. My voice wavered as I kept reading. "This land is yours, legally and rightfully. I set up a trust for emergencies. Mrs. Davis at the bank holds the documents. Don't let anyone scare you. You're stronger than you think." Tears blurred the ink. A trust. He thought ahead. I read the closing line, barely able to speak it. "When the day comes, fight with everything you have. You carry my blood and my faith." The letter slipped onto my lap as I covered my mouth. He knew something like this might happen. He left me the tools. Now it was time I used them. I sat on the floor, staring at the slip tucked behind the letter. A bank routing number. My pulse quickened. "Mrs. Davis," I whispered. No. The next morning, I marched into the bank, the letter pressed flat inside my jacket. The lobby smelled of polish and paper. At the desk I asked, "Is Mrs. Davis in?" The teller nodded. "I'll let her know you're here." Moments later, a silver-haired woman stepped out. "Jenna," she said warmly. "Yes," I managed, my voice shaking. I think you knew my grandfather." Her eyes softened. "Oh yes. He trusted me for years. Come into my office." Inside, I unfolded the letter and placed it in front of her. "I found this. He mentioned you." She adjusted her glasses, reading slowly. When she finished, she looked up with a knowing expression. "I wondered when you'd find it." My heart pounded. "It's true then. The trust." "Yes," she said firmly. "Your grandfather left instructions. A modest fund, only to be used if the land was ever threatened." I covered my mouth. I thought I was alone. I thought he left me with nothing but memories. Mrs. Davis shook her head. "He left you with foresight. He wanted to make sure you could stand firm if anyone challenged you." I leaned forward, desperately. "Karen's trying to take the property. She filed claims, spread lies. She even got me fired." Her lips pressed thin. "That woman has caused trouble before. But with this," she tapped the letter, "you have proof. Legal, binding proof." Hope swelled inside me for the first time in weeks. "So I can fight her." "You can do more than fight," Mrs. Davis said. "You can win." Walking out of the bank, sunlight hit my face. For the first time, it felt warm instead of mocking. I clutched the letter against my chest. "Grandpa," I whispered, "you knew I'd need this. You didn't just give me land, you gave me a chance. That night, I spread the papers across the kitchen table. The words blurred as tears slipped down my cheeks. But these weren't the same tears I'd shed days ago. I whispered into the quiet room. She thought she broke me, but she doesn't know what I've got now. I traced my fingers over Grandpa's handwriting. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. I won't waste that, not anymore. The house seemed to exhale with me, the walls lighter, the silence less sharp. I whispered, steady now. Karen declared war. Fine. She'll see what happens when she underestimates me. I folded the letter carefully, slipping it back into its envelope. My hands no longer shook. This time I felt fire in my chest. Mrs. Davis poured tea into 2 chipped cups and pushed one toward me. You look worn down, Jenna. Trouble. I unfolded Grandpa's letter on the table. I found this under the floorboards. He knew Karen might come after me. But why does she hate me so much? Her eyes clouded. Because it isn't about you. It's about him, your grandfather. I frowned. What do you mean? She lowered her voice. Years ago, after your grandmother passed, Karen pursued him. Romantically, he turned her down. She never forgave him. I blinked. You're telling me she's doing all this because Grandpa said no? Yes. Pride wounded, obsession festering. She couldn't punish him, so she's punishing you. I shook my head in disbelief. That's insane. She's filing complaints, dragging me into court, spreading lies because of some decades-old rejection. Obsession has no timeline, Mrs. Davis said softly, and she's powerful when unchecked. I stared at the letter. Then how do I stop her? I'm one person. Mrs. Davis tapped the page. You have more than you think. This letter, your title, your voice, and a friend. I looked up. What friend? A lawyer, Liam Carter. He doesn't crave attention, but he cares about justice. He's helped families when no one else would. My chest tightened. I can't afford a lawyer. I can barely keep the lights on. Talk to him first, she urged. Money isn't his only measure of worth. The next day, I found myself sitting across from a man in a cluttered office stacked with books and case files. His sleeves were rolled, his tie crooked, as though he didn't care for appearances. He studied the letter quietly, then set it down. This is solid. Very solid. I leaned forward. Solid enough to win. Not yet, he admitted. But it's leverage. With this, we can question her claims, slow her down. I can start digging off the record. I asked carefully. He nodded. If I file too soon, she escalate. I want evidence first. I want her cornered before she realizes she's trapped. Something in his calm voice steadied me. So you're willing to help? Yes. But we'll need patience. She'll get reckless if she thinks she's winning. I hesitated. And payment. He smiled faintly. Sometimes justice is payment enough. I swallowed hard. You have no idea what that means to me. For weeks it's felt like everyone's waiting for me to fail. Then let's give them something else to wait for, he said. That evening, while hauling wood onto the porch, I noticed someone lingering by the fence. Then, I dropped the bundle and crossed my arms. If you're here to defend your mother again, save it. He raised his hands. No. I came to apologize. I frowned. Apologize. For her, he said quietly. I've told her to stop, but she won't. She's obsessed. The word stung. Then why stand by and watch? His jaw clenched. Because she's my mother. But I don't agree with her. I never have. I shook my head. That's convenient. You get to feel guilty while she destroys my life. I'm not proud of it, he said, but I wanted you to know. Not everyone in that house believes in what she's doing. I studied him. There was sincerity in his eyes, but also conflict, like he was torn in two. Then prove it, I said flatly. He hesitated, then looked down. I don't know if I can. Then you've made your choice, I muttered. He looked pained but didn't argue. I'm sorry, Jenna. With that, he turned and walked away. When the sun dipped behind the trees, I sat on the porch with Grandpa's letter in my lap. I traced his handwriting with trembling fingers. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than flicker of fight. I whispered to the empty yard, everyone had a choice. I was finally making mine to fight. Liam spread papers across his desk, tapping one with his pen. Here, this clause in the deed. Her grandfather worded it carefully. She can't claim boundary rights the way she's been trying. I leaned closer. So she's bluffing. Partially, he said. She's hoping intimidation keeps you from reading the fine print. But if we push, the courts will see her case has holes. I exhaled shakily. Then we can stop her. Not yet. If we confront her too early, she twists the story. We need to let her think she's in control. That's when people make mistakes. I narrowed my eyes. So, we set a trap. He gave a faint smile. Exactly. That night, I pulled out a notebook and started writing everything. The noise complaints. The visits from code enforcement. Every glare across the property line. When Liam stopped by, I showed him the growing stack. Is this what you meant? He scanned the pages. Perfect. Keep it up. Think like her lawyer. Details matter. I hesitated. What if she doesn't slip up? She will, he said calmly. She already thinks you're beaten. A few days later, I stood outside by the porch when Karen came storming up the drive. You again, she spat. I heard you're packing up. Finally realized this land doesn't belong to you. I forced my shoulders to sag, keeping my voice low. I can't keep fighting, Karen. You've made your point. Her lips curled into a smug smile. Good. You'll save us both trouble. I stared at the ground. I just hope someone buys it quick. I need the money. She chuckled. Leave that to me. Then she spun on her heel and strutted away, satisfied. Inside, my hands trembled as I grabbed my recorder and whispered, "Got her." Liam listened later, nodding slowly. Smart. Don't push her. Keep letting her think you're ready to run. I frowned. And if she brings in someone else, even better, he said. The more she talks, the more rope she gives us. 2 days passed before a truck rumbled into my driveway. A man in a clean suit stepped out, flashing a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Jenna Brooks, he called. I crossed my arms. Who's asking? Tom Reyes, he said, extending a hand. I hear you're looking to sell. Thought I'd stop by, make things easier. I kept my expression tired. Word travels fast. He smirked. Small town. I've helped people in situations like yours. Quick sale, cash in hand, no fuss. I gestured toward the porch. Let's talk then. Once we sat, he leaned forward. Karen told me you're overwhelmed. She's worried about you, you know. Doesn't want you burdened. My jaw tightened. She said that. He shrugged. She cares more than you think. And she asked me to help smooth things over. You sign, I pay, and you walk away. I tapped the recorder hidden in my pocket. And what happens if I don't? His smile sharpened. Then things get uglier. Lawsuits, fees, liens. You'll drown, but why would you? Look around, you can't keep this place. I forced a shaky laugh. Maybe you're right. I'll think about it. Don't think too long, he warned. Offers like this don't last. The second his truck disappeared down the road, I called Liam. You won't believe what he just said. Tell me everything, he replied. I repeated the conversation, then pressed the recorder to the phone. I got it all. There was a long pause, then his voice sharpened. That's extortion, Jenna. He practically admitted Karen's behind it. I gripped the phone tighter so we can use this. Oh yes, Liam said. Now we're not just defending, you're going on the offense. Later that night, I sat on the porch with my notebook open, scribbling. The courtroom smelled faintly of polished wood and nerves. I sat at the defendant's table alone, my hands gripping the edge. Karen strutted in with her lawyer, eyes blazing with smug victory. She whispered loud enough for me to hear, finally, "We'll end this circus." I swallowed hard, forcing calm. This isn't over yet. Her lawyer, a sharp-faced man in a gray suit, stood. Your Honor, my client Karen Whitmore seeks rightful ownership of the Brooks property, land unfairly held by the defendant. The judge nodded, scribbling notes. Proceed. Karen turned in her seat, flashing me a cruel smile. Hope you enjoyed your little stay. This is the end. I clenched my jaw. We'll see. Her lawyer droned on, waving documents. The land was poorly maintained. Miss Brooks cannot afford it. She's admitted as much. My client has attempted resolution numerous times, yet the defendant continues to trespass on what should be legally transferred. The judge raised an eyebrow. Do you have proof of ownership transfer? Karen's lawyer hesitated. Not directly, but precedent. The judge cut him off. We'll stick to facts. I tried to steady my breath. My evidence was thin without Liam. Where was he? The lawyer smirked. Miss Brooks, you've struggled financially, haven't you? I forced myself to answer calmly. Yes, but that doesn't mean this land is yours. He leaned forward. Didn't you tell neighbors you were giving up? Yes, I admitted. Because I wanted her to show her hand. The room murmured. The lawyer scoffed. So you're admitting you lead? I looked straight at Karen. I survived. The judge cleared his throat. Do you have legal counsel, Miss Brooks? I opened my mouth to say no, but the doors creaked open. Liam strode in, briefcase in hand. My chest tightened in relief. Apologies for my delay, Your Honor, he said smoothly. Liam Carter, representing Miss Brooks. Karen's face paled. What is this? Her lawyer hissed. Objection. This is irregular. The judge waved a hand. Sit down, Mr. Carter, proceed. Liam placed a stack of files on the table. Your Honor, this is a letter from the late Mr. Brooks, hidden in the property's original structure. It clarifies ownership and explicitly names his granddaughter as heir. He handed it over. The judge scanned quickly, eyes narrowing, and here, Liam continued, is documentation of repeated harassment by the plaintiff. Noise complaints, false reports, and coordinated attempts to drive my client from her home. Karen shot up. That's nonsense. Sit, her lawyer whispered sharply. Liam remained calm. Additionally, we have audio recordings. Would the court like to hear them? The judge gestured. Play them. The crackle of my recorder filled the courtroom. Karen's voice sneered from the speaker. Leave that to me. You'll save us both trouble. Then Tom Reyes's oily tone. Sign, I pay. You walk away. Otherwise it gets uglier. Gasps rippled through the benches. I glanced at Karen, her knuckles white, lips pressed thin. Her lawyer scrambled. These are taken out of context. Liam cut in smoothly. Context, extortion is clear. And finally he motioned toward the back. We call Mrs. Davis to testify. Mrs. Davis shuffled forward, her cane steady. She raised her right hand, swore in, then fixed Karen with a look colder than steel. I've lived beside both families for 40 years, she began. Karen's grudge isn't about land. It's about Brooks turning her down decades ago. She's never forgiven him. This lawsuit, it's revenge. The courtroom buzzed louder. The judge rapped his gavel. Order. Karen's face twisted. Lies, all lies. Mrs. Davis's voice didn't waver. He was a good man, and he wanted Jenna here. That's the truth. The judge turned back to Karen. Do you have rebuttal evidence? Karen sputtered, glancing at her lawyer. He shifted uncomfortably, then muttered, No substantial evidence. Your Honor? Karen slapped the table. This isn't fair. She doesn't deserve that land. It should have been mine. The judge's gavel struck again, sharp and final. Enough. He flipped through Liam's documents, reread the letter, then removed his glasses. The court finds in favor of the defendant, Jenna Brooks. Ownership of the Brooks property remains solely and legally hers. The words rang in my ears like church bells. Karen staggered back, eyes wide. Her lawyer tried to steady her, but she shoved him away. She turned toward me, disbelief etched across every line of her face. You think this changes anything, she hissed. You think you've won. I rose slowly, meeting her gaze. My voice didn't shake. I don't think Karen, I know. The bailiff stepped forward, guiding her out as she shouted, This isn't over. But for me, it was. Outside, I pressed my back against the cool stone wall, closing my eyes. Liam joined me, his voice quiet. You did well. I laughed weakly. You showed up just in time. I told you, he said. She'd make herself sloppy. Mrs. Davis patted my shoulder. Your grandfather would be proud. I looked up at the sky, the weight lifting from my chest. Her face didn't show defeat. It showed disbelief, as if karma had arrived too soon. Asterisk, the whispers around town started before I even stepped into the diner. People leaned over coffee cups, voices low. Did you hear what happened to Karen? One woman muttered, Judge threw it out. Said she embarrassed herself. Another replied, I slid into a booth, ordering black coffee. The waitress gave me a small smile. Good to see you still around, Jenna. Guess some folks don't get the last word after all. Guess not, I said softly. Ben showed up later that afternoon, hands shoved in his pockets. He didn't look me in the eye at first. I owe you an apology, he began. You already tried once, I reminded him. What's different now? He exhaled. This time, I mean it. I'm done with her, with all of it. I studied him carefully. You're cutting ties with your own mother. She crossed a line, he admitted. I thought she was just stubborn. But she's cruel. I can't keep defending that. There was a heaviness in his tone, but also relief. I nodded. Then maybe you'll be all right after all. 2 days later, I ran into Tom Reyes near the hardware store. He adjusted his watch nervously, avoiding my eyes. Jenna, he muttered, I'm pulling out. Deal's off. Not worth the heat. You were never going to get this land, I said flatly. He smirked weakly. Didn't hurt to try. It did hurt, I corrected him. Just not you. He didn't answer, just turned and left. I watched him go, feeling lighter than I had in months. The calls started soon after. A woman from a publishing house. We'd love to commission you, she said eagerly. Your story could inspire thousands. I'm not interested, I replied. Think about the money. The recognition I've had, enough attention, I cut in. I don't need to relive it for strangers. She sighed, but didn't press, for the first time in a long while. I felt in control. One evening, my phone rang again. Avery's name flashed across the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. Jenna. His voice was hesitant, almost unrecognizable. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I stayed quiet. I should have stood by you. Instead, I let Karen's poison get in my head. I regret it. My throat tightened, but I forced my words. The porch boards were warm beneath my feet as I carried my mug of tea outside. The light above the door glowed softly, steady against the night. I settled into the old rocking chair, breathing in the quiet. I whispered to myself, same porch. Different me. My neighbor Clara called from across the fence. You're still up? I smiled. Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd keep the light on a little longer. She walked closer, leaning on the railing. Funny how something as small as a light makes this place feel different. It feels alive again, I admitted. For a while, I didn't know if I'd ever feel that. You've changed, she said. You used to keep your head down. Now you look people straight in the eye. I chuckled softly. Guess I finally remembered who I was. The phone buzzed beside me. Liam's name lit the screen. I answered. Still working, I teased. Not tonight, he replied. I was just checking in. You doing all right? I looked at the porch. Light, its glow spilling across the yard. Better than all right. Good, he said warmly. You deserve it. Liam, I asked quietly, did you ever think I'd lose? He hesitated. I knew it would be close, but I also knew you wouldn't give up. That answer wrapped around me like a blanket. Thanks for showing up when you did. You showed up for yourself first, he corrected. After hanging up, I sat back, letting the silence settle again. The memories returned. Corinne's threats, the fear, the nights I nearly packed my bags. I whispered into the dark, I forgive you, Karen. The words surprised me, but they felt right. Not for her, she'd never hear them. For me, so I wouldn't carry her shadow anymore. Ben stopped by earlier that day, and his words lingered. She won't ever admit she was wrong, he'd said. But maybe that's her punishment, to live with it. I'd told him, you don't have to carry her mistakes. And he'd nodded, almost in relief. Maybe we both needed to hear it. I looked around the porch, the fresh paint, the rebuilt railing, the light shining steady. I remembered the first night I sat here, trembling, wondering if I should leave everything behind. She tried to steal my home. I murmured to the empty yard, but she gave me back something bigger, myself. The crickets answered, steady and calm. Clara called again from her porch, her voice softer this time, leaving the light on. Yeah, I replied. Feels right. What's it mean to you? She asked. I sipped my tea before answering that I made it through, that I don't have to hide anymore. She smiled across the fence. Then keep it burning, Jenna. Some of us need to see it. Her words settled deep in my chest. This wasn't just my victory, it was proof to anyone watching that silence could turn into strength. The night stretched quiet, peaceful, unbroken. I rocked gently in the chair, the tea warm in my hands, the light glowing steady. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for trouble, or listening for footsteps, or holding my breath. I was simply here, home, whole, and the porch light stayed on,